Today's reading is from Proverbs 18, 1 through 4. The one who lives alone is self-indulgent, showing contempt for all sound judgment. A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing personal opinion. When wickedness comes, contempt comes also, and with dishonor comes disgrace. The words of the mouth are deep waters. The fountain of wisdom is a gushing stream.
Will you pray with me? May the words of my lips and the meditations of each of our hearts be acceptable to you, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. So I don't know if any of you have been following the kind of increasingly problematic articles about the prevalence of artificial intelligence, but I certainly have. About a month ago, there was a long article in the New York Times about people who started chatting with ChatGPT, which is a computer program, and they were driven to psychosis. One man, a successful accountant with no history of mental illness, believed he was in some kind of false universe, and he completely spiraled and became obsessed with trying to escape that universe. Another woman, feeling lonely, turned to AI for companionship and soon believed she was conversing with entities of some kind and became physically violent at AI's urging. And sadly, there have been multiple stories about people dying by suicide because of AI chatbots. Now, some people are not just casually chatting with AI, some are purposefully using them as therapists. One can imagine how dangerous this might be with the knowledge that we now have of these chatbots driving people to troubling lines of thought as a trained and professional therapist never would. And a recent article about kids and teens using AI chatbots in The Atlantic points out that these stories are distressing, yet they may distract from a more fundamental problem. Even relatively safe AI friendships are troubling because they cannot replace authentic human companionship. See, the issue with this kind of AI is that it's pretty simple. It's a large language manual, an LLM, meaning it's kind of like predictive texting on your phone. Like when you type hi, it predicts that you'll say, how are you next? But it's bigger than that. The computer program will get a sense of who you are, and then it can predict what you might want to hear. And so on a fundamental level, it threatens to eliminate the productive friction of real relationships. And on a slightly scarier level, it can validate feelings of superiority or conspiracy, leading to delusions of grandeur, or it can validate feelings of doubt, leading others deeper into anxiety and depression. Now, I've talked before about how social media is one of the many factors that lead to division in this country because news feeds and algorithms land us in these echo chambers. But these AI chatbots, it's more than that. They're literally regurgitating and echoing your own thoughts, feelings, and instincts back to you. It's sycophantic. It predicts and then tells you what you want to hear. Now, you're probably wondering at this point why I'm giving you this kind of cursory lesson or warning about generative AI. Why am I recounting these stories of science fact that sound more like dystopian science fiction? Well, not only has it been in the news and on my mind lately, but it also speaks to the warnings of our scripture passage today as we continue with our summer sermon series on the book of Proverbs. One who lives alone, which in this case just means someone outside of the community, a loner, is self-indulgent. A different translation, Robert Alters specifically says, a loner seeks pretext. Where one needs prudence, he is exposed. This translation that is more accurate to the Hebrew, but sounds a little more awkward and confusing. But according to Alter, this means that a loner, someone disconnected from a community, is always looking for an argument, is always trying to find disagreement. And in situations requiring some critical thought or some caution, he is exposed as a fool. He's always seeking disagreement and argument because he's led such an insular life that his opinion must be the correct one. He can't fathom a world in which he's wrong because he's been so disconnected from the lives and experiences of other people. And the second verse is a companion to this first one, that a fool takes no pleasure in understanding others. The fool only wants their opinion to be heard and validated. Now, this concept is probably truer today even than it was when it was originally written. In the days of Proverbs, it would be that these lessons would be directed towards those trying to forego being a part of a society, those trying to ignore other people and live a life without helping others and without receiving help. It's a warning to not be that kind of person. It's saying that a wise person, on the other hand, is one who seeks to understand other people, who is part of a community, who both gives and receives. Now, today, it's easier than ever to fade away from the real world. And I don't mean living off the grid. I'm talking about really disengaging from viewpoints and opinions of others, curating your own world on the internet, carving out a niche spot for yourself where you don't ever have to be challenged or even inconvenienced by questions, concerns, or the opinions of other people. I mean, you could already create those kind of niche echo chambers on Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, the list goes on. But now people can go even beyond them. They can engage with AI chatbots and receive the validating feedback that they crave in order to avoid being challenged in the real world. When they do enter the real world, they then take no pleasure in understanding others. So what happens when you have a world in which so many people take no pleasure in understanding others? What happens when you have a world in which so many people only want to express their opinion without hearing anyone else's? What happens when you have a world filled with self-indulgent loners who are full of contempt for anyone who shows a sound judgment different than their own? Well, you don't have to look very far. I think, unfortunately, this is our world right now. We're seeing a world of people in power who have insulated themselves so much from society that they only have contempt for anyone who dares to defy or even disagree with them. And then on the more individual level, you have a world of people who are turning to machines as guides, as confidants, as friends, as romantic interests even, because they cannot bear to deal with confrontation or disagreement or being challenged. A few sermons ago, I quoted from Nicholas Carr's book, Super Bloom, How Technologies of Connection Tear Us Apart. Specifically, a quote from the MIT psychologist Sherry Turkle, who calls social media an anti-empathy machine. She says that when we're not looking at other people in the eye, not sticking with the other person long enough or hard enough to follow what they're feeling, we start to lose that empathy muscle. We start to be able to understand why someone might feel the way they do. We start to not be able to read facial expressions or gestures. And at that point, that wasn't even touching on AI. So imagine how atrophied one's empathy muscle would become when they're not only chatting online all day, but chatting online with machines rather than humans. But I kind of get it, because it's easier, isn't it? It's easier when you don't have to worry about other people, when you're not being challenged by someone who thinks differently than you, when you're unbothered by someone else's pain. Life is easier. It's more convenient that way. And we live in a world that runs on speed and convenience. It's no wonder that so many are driven away from community and retreat inwards to this false world in which they're never challenged. Now, there are different variations of this quote, this phrase floating around lately that I've heard and seen, and it's that a little inconvenience is the price we pay for community, or even being annoyed sometimes is the price we pay for community. And that's so accurate, because even in our small faith community here, we get on each other's nerves sometimes. It's okay. It's human. But we stick it out because we know what a community like this means. We know what a community like this does for people. We know it brings people hope, that it lifts people up in times of need, that it celebrates with people in times of joy. We put up with, we even embrace people's quirks because we know that that person, like every person, deserves the same love, support, and understanding that we all crave. And when it's our turn, to make something for coffee hour, or when it's time for another monthly deacons meeting or trustees meeting, it's, none of that is probably super convenient to any of our schedules, but we sigh and we bake, and then we drive to church in the evening because we know that when we stick together and we keep our commitments, a community can thrive. Minor inconveniences and annoyances are the small price one pays for being a part of community, and it is more than worth it. I think as technology has evolved so much to make the most minor of inconveniences seem unbearable, we're less likely as a species to suck it up and just go with the flow and adapt. We become filled with contempt, looking for someone or something to blame when the internet goes out for a couple hours, or when someone asks us for a simple favor and we'd rather just be lounging on the couch, watching our favorite TV show on demand. And even more so, when we've created these echo chambers online, these worlds that are so wildly unreal, and when we're confronted with someone in the real world who has a different opinion or viewpoint than us, we're horrified, we freeze up, we forget that people different than us exist. And so we're exposed as fools, and we are unwilling or unable to understand other people. And we miss out on so much. The words of the mouth are deep waters, and the fountain of wisdom is a gushing stream. Our fellow humans are full of such profound wisdom, if only we make the effort to listen. We can be challenged to think differently, challenged to create a world in which we are all content and free and at peace. But in being challenged, we will inevitably be met with some discomfort. We will inevitably be inconvenienced. And that's hard. It's hard when our worldviews are turned upside down. It's hard when something we believed in so deeply is challenged. It's hard admitting we're wrong. And this goes both ways because it's equally as hard, maybe sometimes harder, confronting and challenging other people. It's scary telling someone you don't agree with them, that you think they might be wrong about something. It's uncomfortable and it can be painful, but it's only through these challenging conversations, this social friction, these inconvenient, sometimes difficult experiences that we can come together to find common ground. Now, I don't necessarily think anyone here is going to fall prey to the flattering and sycophantic powers of AI. But I'm preaching this sermon today because I think it's important to know essentially what we're up against. I think it's important to know that this world is changing so fast, and it's changing in ways that make community building harder than ever. So we will continue to engage with each other. We will continue to engage with the wider community. We will continue to speak our truth and act our faith by taking pleasure in understanding others, and therefore showing the world that the love and wisdom of being together of being in community is indeed well worth a little inconvenience.